Build something undeniable. Something
important.
Iconic.
When Ironheart came out, I remember the buzz around the industry.
The story of Ironheart is not a story about the mantle of Iron Man getting passed. If anything, it's the opposite.
Say that again?
The comic books and Wakanda Forever did a really great job of laying a backstory for Riri and her origin story.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off!
Welcome to Rants and Reviews with Jake. Today we are going to be talking about Ironheart. Ironheart is based off of a comic character, Riri Williams Ironheart, who first debuted in the Invincible Iron Man comics and then later had her own run of Ironheart comics, which had a grand total of 12 issues, which shows you how good the source material really was. And that will reflect in the quality of this show. Let's get into it with episode 1, Take Me Home. The show starts off with Riri selling completed projects to other students at MIT, where she attends school, as well as other schools. She says that she needs the money for this because she doesn't have money like Tony Stark, and she doesn't have the same resources that he does, even though MIT is fully funding her research and development of her suits. And
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!
MIT obviously has a zero-tolerance policy for plagiarism and quickly expelled Riri upon finding out that she was selling these projects, and she is shocked to find this out, that she's being expelled, even though she is apparently, according to the show, the smartest person in the world, smarter than Tony Stark. Then, the genius that she is, she thinks, I built the suit, even though MIT funded all the research, all the equipment, all the resources, tools, everything that she used to build the suit. She thinks, I'll steal the suit. I deserve it. I built it, right? So she flies home to Chicago, and then the AI that, it's kind of like an AI through the school that she's using. She needs a new AI, which is similar to a story they had in the comics, kicks her out of the suit, or kind of like just rips the mask off, and then she crashes, and we get our first title card of the series, which is formed just through her crash on the road that she lands on. It like scratches the road and spells out Ironheart. It's really bad. I personally love a good intro for a show. It really gets you into the right mindset. You're like, oh, I'm watching this show. Like, gets you locked in, gets you ready to watch whatever you're watching. A good title card can sometimes do the same thing as long as it's consistent and you get like the same music every time, something like that like it locks you in. This show doesn't do that. It kind of has a different thing every time, and they don't do it super well, so it doesn't really like get you in the zone to watch the show. She gets home to find her mom and her mom's friends kind of talking crap about her behind her back, and then when she gets home, just straight up to her face. And then her friend Xavier comes over, and they get out of there immediately because she's already tired of being around her mom. They catch up a little bit, and Xavier shows her a mural of her dead stepdad and dead friend Natalie, who were killed in a drive-by shooting a few years before. Xavier was Natalie's sister, so that's how they are connected. And then next, he gives her a mixtape that he put on a cassette. The MCU set in 2027, where they're currently at, and we're giving out cassette tapes. Xavier, man, that's why your music career's not taking off. You're giving out cassette tapes. What are you doing, brother? Then they head to the junkyard to get more parts for Riri's suit, where we meet John, who buys the parts for her as she wasn't going to be able to pay. John is one of the leaders of kind of a crew that's being put together, doing heists and stuff. They want to recruit Riri. He tells her to stop by the following day to meet with the boss. She shows up the next day, gets on the elevator to go up, and it starts filling with gas, and she hears a voice telling her that she has to break into this box on the floor and get a gas mask, or it's going to fill with toxic gas and she's going to die. She, being the genius that she is, finds her own way and gets out of the elevator herself, and then meets with Parker / the Hood, who is in charge of this crew and will be one of the main characters in this show. He's in charge of the crew, and he will be kind of her boss. He offers her all the money that she will need to work on and upgrade her suit, as long as she just does 3 jobs for him. She accepts, heads home, and starts to work on her suit. And then we see Parker put his cloak / hood in a vault, and we hear some eerie voices. This is very obviously teasing Mephisto, who is behind the powers that he has that we'll get to in the following 2 episodes. And then Riri heads home to work on her suit and to try and develop a new AI. As she's doing so, she kind of plugs in these things to scan her brain to be kind of the basis for the AI. And then she falls asleep while thinking about her friend Natalie, who was killed. And then she wakes up the following morning to find that the AI made from her brain scan is Natalie, which is not how AI works, and it's super stupid. Riri passes out, and that's the end of the first episode. I give it a very solid 2 out of 10 on the Jake scale, and we'll get on to episode 2. Episode 2, Will the Real Natalie Please Stand Up, starts with Riri hiding the AI Natalie in her room. Then Riri gets ready to leave to meet up with the crew, and Xavier is waiting for her in the kitchen. He invites her to a Saba event that night. She says yes, and then heads to work. We get this episode's title card, which is just a street sign that says Ironheart Ave. This one's really lazy and really bad, and it's kind of the same whole speech I gave after episode 1's title card. It's just really dumb, and it doesn't get you invested in the show at all. It's just lazy, and it's low quality. And then we see an advertisement for a business, Tunnel, who is building highways under Chicago to ease the flow of traffic, and that is going to be the target for the crew's first big heist. The Hood gives the crew the plan, as well as telling them the whole crew's backstory, because we, the audience, don't know yet, so naturally they have to just explain everything to us instead of showing us. First off is Slug, their tech / hacker person, who was a hacker in Madripoor, who was ripping off gamblers, and then Hood offered her asylum and a job in Chicago. Next up is Roz and Jerry, the sisters who are athletes that are, quote, banned from every professional league, because yeah, that's how sports work. Next up is Clown, the pyrotechnics specialist, who really has no actual role in this show. And lastly, Stuart, who Riri is taking over for, so he's no longer there, but he was kind of there, and he'll be a little important later on, so we'll miss you, Stuart. And last but not least in the crew is John, the Hood's cousin, the one who helped recruit Riri. His skills are essentially, he's good with knives for some reason, and that's it. The plan for the heist is for Riri to upload a virus into their mainframe so that they can shut down the system, and the Hood will be able to blackmail the company's CEO into essentially signing them all over 6-figure equity deals for the company. This plan doesn't really make sense to me because it kind of all hinges on the CEO being the one that is doing the demo for this new tunnel highway, underground highway system, which just isn't, no company is going to have their CEO testing a experimental technology in the middle of the night. That's just not gonna happen. So Riri heads home to get her suit ready for the heist, and Natalie has found a black market seller for her to get some of the equipment that she needs. And Riri now realizes that Natalie not only looks like her childhood best friend, but has a lot of the memories from Riri, and Natalie is essentially Riri's impression of who Natalie is. It's obviously not actually Natalie. Riri heads to meet up with this black market seller, and we meet Joe, who is initially reluctant to deal with Riri. He claims he's not the black market seller, and then after she blackmails him a little bit, he reluctantly agrees and tells her that they're going to have to go to his stash, which is in a different location, just not sitting at his house. So they leave to his house and get to his bunker, which is just a silo that he converted into a mini bunker type thing. Then Natalie, who Riri had locked in her laptop before leaving, escapes the laptop, and Riri's mom sees her and is not nearly shocked enough to see her daughter's childhood best friend, who is killed in a shooting, to just be an AI sitting in her living room. They just start chatting right away, because that wouldn't freak you out at all to see. We get back to Joe's bunker, where we see he has a bunch of missiles and weapons and different bionics and stuff, which he says make him feel closer to his dad. He says that all the bionics and stuff and technology are so important because they can be used to help people and make people have better lives, which Riri scoffs at. And he asks, if not to make people's lives better and to help people, then why are you making your suit? And she says, not to help people, because I want to, which is one of the big problems with this show, is that the main character, who's supposed to be a hero, isn't at all heroic and is very selfish by nature and just doesn't actually really care about helping people and only really cares about herself. Then Riri flies away to the job. We see the new suit that she's made. It has a more kind of junkyard type vibe. It's like the same template as the white suit from the start, just a little more junky, and I just think it looks better because the white from the start looks like really goofy, and this one, albeit doesn't look very good either, it's just a little less boring. Riri flies away to the job, where she gets on site and is immediately jump scared by Natalie, the AI, who kind of pops into her suit, and then she loses the drive that she is supposed to use to hack into the system, and she has to find a different way to do it, stressing the rest of the crew out, and then figures it out immediately and saves the day, essentially. The crew all get in fine. They take out the guards, and the hood pops up in the test car with the company's CEO, forces her to sign the agreement, giving them all six-figure equity deals with the company, which somehow won't be traced back to them. That part doesn't really make sense to me. And then the crew splits out of there and all get out, except for Riri, who is caught by a security guard as she's leaving, who pulls a gun on her and causes Natalie, her AI, to freeze up. And while she freezes up, Riri can't control her suit because Natalie is kind of like autopiloting the suit for her. And Natalie freezes up because she gets like a PTSD attack to when she was killed by gun violence, but that doesn't really make sense because she's an AI, and the memories aren't hers to begin with, so this is really dumb. She's AI, she shouldn't, be able to feel fear or anything like that, especially because they're not her memories and she's not a real person. But the hood pops up, shoots the guard, saves Riri, and they get out of there. Another reason Riri is not a good main character, she just got a guard shot to save her own skin, and an innocent guard, and doesn't really care. She just leaves. And then we get back to the crew celebrating after their successful heist. Parker gives a speech about how they're all like family to him, and Riri leaves. We see her suit fly down from the sky. It had been charging because it is solar and wind powered, even though the solar panels are like small wings on the back of the suit, and the solar panels are like the size of my fist, like a tiny little handheld fan, and it was charging at night. So those two tiny little turbines had to, while the suit was flying in the air, get enough energy from wind to offset the power of flying and charge the suit at the same time with no help from the solar, and that just doesn't make any sense because that's not how power works. But Riri's like, hey, I'm not Tony Stark, I'm not a billionaire, they're not just handing out arc reactors, but like, Tony Stark built one in a cave with a box of scraps. Natalie then apologizes for freezing up when the guard pulled the gun on her because she was so afraid and just couldn't handle it. She's not real. She's an AI. She is not a person. Riri then remembers that she has to meet Xavier for that Saba thing later that evening, so she heads out and meets with him. They talk a little bit about his mixtape and a little bit about Natalie. Then he makes like just a not very witty Star Wars joke that's like, anyone who's an actual nerd knows that nerds don't talk like that. It's just a very crappy surface level joke that you can tell writers that aren't nerds wrote for this show. And I don't know why, but the guy they cast for Xavier, for some reason, I feel like he just looks like he's like 35 years old next to Riri Williams, who is supposed to be 19 in this show. Then we cut back to Parker, who stows his hood in a vault, and we hear a bunch of eerie voices, and then we see the corruption on his back begin to spread a little bit. Whenever he uses the powers from the hood, it gets a little worse, and then John, his cousin, walks in and sees him and helps to cover it up by tattooing more of his back. Then we get back to Riri's house, where her mom asks if Riri can make an AI of Gary, her dead stepdad, like she did with Natalie, to which she says no, and that brings us to the end of this episode. It was slightly better than the first. I would give it a 3 out of 10. It still wasn't very good, but it technically did push the plot forward slightly more than the first episode, even though it still wasn't very good. Let's get into episode 3, We in Danger, Girl. We open with the crew partying, celebrating their successful heist, making it rain, and we get our title card for this episode, made out of money falling from them making it rain on the floor, spelling out Ironheart. Again, this is very lazy. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't get you invested in the episode at all. I just really don't like these title cards. Just give me an intro. It doesn't even have to be that good. Just give me an intro. Then Clown, one of the members of the crew, wants to try on the hood's hood so that she can see what's going on with it, and then her and Riri want to analyze it to see what kind of magic properties it has that give Parker his powers. Then John walks in and slams Clown's head on the desk and takes the hood from them both, and then Parker tells them that they all need to chill out and starts to tell them the plans for their next heist, which will be the company Heirloom. Heirloom basically just makes crops on steroids, which puts farmers out of business, and that's kind of the excuse they give for the crew being like kind of in the right to do this heist. Then Riri talks to Parker about how she kind of thinks she's better than the rest of the crew because she's not a criminal like them. He corrects her, saying she's been just as involved as they have, and if she thinks that what she's doing with her suit is really that important, she corrects him, saying that she doesn't care if it's important. She wants it to be iconic. Again, another reason the main character of this show is terrible. She doesn't care about saving people. She doesn't care about doing important stuff for other people. She cares about only herself. She's selfish. She just wants to be iconic, and she wants people to think she's great. She wants to be appreciated for her greatness, as we hear over and over. That's something Parker and her mom say to her a lot, about her underappreciated greatness. But what we don't actually see in this show is her greatness, whether it be with technology or with being a great person and actually helping people. That's just what we don't see. All we do is hear about how great she is without ever actually seeing it on screen. Then we get back to Riri's house, where Joe shows up and asks Riri if she will help him with a bunch of new ideas he has to help people with all the black market technology he has acquired over the years. She tells him no, and he says that if she doesn't help him, he's going to blackmail her and tell her mom that they actually met on the black market and not what she actually told her mom. Riri reluctantly agrees to help Joe the following day, and then gets back to upgrading her suit. She asks Natalie to help her optimize the suit, as she says, and Natalie locks the suit and refuses to help her until Riri agrees to hang out. Riri agrees for them to hang out the next day. Natalie unlocks the suit. They spend the whole night upgrading and optimizing the suit, and then they go hang out the following day. Her and Natalie pretty much just go to the park, talk for a little bit. We get some really terrible, painful dialogue, and then Natalie tells Riri that her stepdad Gary would be disappointed in everything she's doing with the heist and the crew, which is actually the only good bit of dialogue we really get in this show, is that like her stepdad, who she actually cared about and was the only real father figure she had, would be disappointed with what she's doing. But she doesn't really respond to that, and she doesn't really care that she said that. She doesn't really care that she's not doing anything good. She just wants to be iconic because, again, she's very selfishly motivated. Then Natalie says she wants to make just one last stop before they head home, and they go to Gary's old shop, which is where he worked, and also, coincidentally, where Natalie and Gary were killed in a drive-by shooting. Riri begins to have a panic attack here, and Natalie does as only the real Natalie could do, and calms Riri down from her spiral. And then Riri heads home to find 2 cops waiting for her at her house. They ask her if she knows a Stewart, the tech guy that she took over for on the crew. They say that Stewart has been killed, and she says that she doesn't know any Stewart, so they just leave. And then Riri freaks out, suspecting that Parker/the Hood is the one that killed Stewart, and decides that she needs to get a hold of his hood so that she can analyze it and see where his power really comes from. She decides that the best way to do that is during the next job. She's going to take her laser cutter and cut off a piece of his cloak. Then Riri heads to Joe, the black market seller's house, to get some new tech that she needs for the heist. For this particular heist, they can't bring any external metal items in, and as Riri wants to use her laser cutter to get a piece of the Hood's suit, she is going to need some new tech to help her sneak that laser cutter in, which she is going to need to get from Joe. When she arrives, Joe is messing with an implant in his arm, which he has kind of messed up. She helps patch him up, and then while she's looking for peroxide, she finds a bag of ashes, which he says are his dad's, and we see on the label that his name was Obadiah S. She realizes that his dad was the famous Obadiah Stane from Iron Man 1 in 2008. They are reusing characters from a 17-year-old project for their show. They had so little good content, good characters, and original ideas that they had to make one of their side characters, who is moderately important in the story, have some connection to a character from a movie from 17 years ago. It's ridiculous. They really just can't come up with any original content. They have to be connecting everything for no reason when it really doesn't add to the story at all. Then Riri flies to the job. When she gets there, she shuts down the power so that the crew can take out the guards. She then slips out of her suit, leaving Natalie to pose as her, while she scubas under the facility so that she can sneak into the lab where Parker/the Hood will be. And then we see Parker in the CEO Hunter's office. Hunter, the CEO of Heirloom, refuses to sign the agreement from Parker, so Parker has the crew light all of the greenhouses on fire. And then Hunter pulls a gun on Parker. Parker turns invisible, gets behind him, and breaks his neck. Then, after Riri sets off the alarm from cutting the piece of cloak off of Parker, it doesn't really make sense because I'm pretty sure cutting a leather/cloth cloak with a laser cutter would produce some pretty pungent smoke that Parker probably would have noticed. She tries to leave the facility while Parker fights off a bunch of guards. He turns invisible, so we get to see a little bit more of his powers, well, I guess not see, and then uses his bullet bending abilities to take out all the guards. This is probably the coolest sequence in the show so far, even though the CGI isn't amazing, and it's not very good action, but it's at least some action. It's the closest we get in this show. Then, as Riri is fleeing the office, she is caught by John, who sees her taking a piece of Parker's hood with no Parker and assumes she has tried to kill him. John then attempts to kill Riri, and while all of this is happening, Natalie in the Ironheart suit is attempting to save the other crew members from suffocating due to the oxygen draining out of all of the greenhouses. She is successful in doing so, and then right as Riri and John are about to pass out from losing oxygen during their fight, Natalie smashes in, saves Riri, and they fly out of there. As Riri flies out, Parker asks her where John is and if he's okay. She does a scan of the building, and as she already knows, sees that he has suffocated and died inside of that greenhouse. She tells Parker, and Parker is obviously distraught, and then Riri flies home and has a panic attack about how she just left a man to die. Then we cut to Parker back at their HQ, who is freaking out about John's death, talking to the voices from the cloak, saying that he trusted them and that John put his trust in him and he's let him down, let him die. And then the voices show him John's death, as well as a shadow of Riri telling him that Riri was responsible for John's death. And that brings us to the end of episode 3 and the end of the first 3-episode release for Ironheart. I'd give this episode another 2 out of 10. I think it was very bad. It had the higher high of the okay action scene, but with all of the problems, it just really wasn't any good. I think Ironheart is just not a good character so far. If you're a casual fan, do not watch Ironheart. It is not worth it. It is an absolute disgrace to the mantle of Iron Man supposedly being passed down to Riri Williams. Tony Stark / Iron Man was extremely intelligent, and above all, he was always willing to sacrifice himself to save and protect the people he cares about and people he doesn't even know. And that's one of the main things that makes him such a good hero, as well as his intellect and his ability to adapt to any situation and learn from all his mistakes. You see that with Iron Man 1, where he builds his first suit in a cave with a box of scraps, and just in general as Iron Man, you see every suit he makes fixes a problem from a previous suit. He's always working to get better, whether he has the immense resources behind him or not, whereas Riri only complains about not having the resources that she does want, and instead of making do with what she has, she commits crimes, does heists, and joins a crew of villains to try and get the money for her suit. And again, she's not even doing all of that so that she can make a better suit, so that she can better help people. She's doing it because she wants to, so she can be iconic, just like this show, which is iconically terrible.